All right, so I've been getting a lot of questions about what is a reserve currency. Basically, a reserve currency is what is used in most of the transactions around the world at any given time. Basically, it's the top dog, the top form of money, right? And so right now, that's the US dollar. So if you look at all the transactions that happen worldwide between economies, most of them by far happen with US dollars. Companies borrow US dollars from the US. US uses dollars to buy goods. Other currencies are hedged against the US dollar. Okay, so that is characteristically what makes up a reserve currency. And so the country that has the power to print whatever currency is the reserve currency has the highest economic power in the world. So right now the US can print in dollars. That's the global reserve currency. Now, how long has it been the reserve currency? Only since 1945. That's when, right after World War II, there was the Bretton Woods Agreement. I'll give you a little history here. So the reserve currency before the US dollar was the British pound, and before that was the Dutch guilder. Now the Dutch guilder was the world reserve currency from about 1581 to 1784, and that was, the Dutch had started their empire when they won their freedom from Spain. And then what set them apart from other countries is that they were fantastic at building ships. And at that time, that's what sets you apart as becoming masters at trade and economics. And so they set up the Dutch East India Company, and that was, this huge trade company. They set up the world's first stock exchange, and in the world's first major financial center, which was in Amsterdam. Okay, so during that period of time, the Dutch was the leaders of the world order. Now, the Dutch, depending on which country you're from, right, you might view this as a blessing or a mistake, right? But they assisted the American revolutionists in gaining their freedom from England. And so, because of that, in retaliation for the Dutch assistance, in the late 1700s, England went to war with the Dutch, and they had done this before and lost because the Dutch were fantastic at building ships. They had the greatest military, but at this point, their empire had extended to the point where it's too big to maintain. They were experiencing some economic challenges, and so because of their position, they lost the war. And that's when Britain became the new world order, right? The new world power, and they established the British pound as the global reserve currency. So at that point, the world financial center shifted from Amsterdam to London, and just like the Dutch had the Dutch East India Company, London, or the British Empire established the British East Indian Company to protect all of their trade assets and whatnot, and so that's kind of how they were there. And anyway, Britain grew their empire through the rest of the 1700s, 1800s, and into the early 1900s when they got overextended, some financial trouble, and ultimately the World War. They were decimated with bombings from Germany. They lost a lot of people in the war. They lost a lot of their ability to produce, and so a lot of factors combined for their empire to end and for the U.S. to rise. Yeah.